everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy, this is Dave. Today we're going to talk about the top 3 comeback bands in rock and roll. It took me a while to really think about, the top 3 bands that have made comebacks. I had to really do some research last night because I was thinking more current, maybe bands that were big, a long time ago and are current. But no, then I had to think, I need to go back in time and really think about bands that maybe were big in the 70s and then they weren't,
or 60s or 80s or whatever.
And then they had a 10-year span or no span, not much of a span at all. But anyway, let's get to it. So why don't you start it off?
I'm going to go with Aerosmith. I'm a child of the 70s, and, Aerosmith had Dream On and freaking Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, Rocks, Draw the Line. But they were so drugged out that they ended up splitting up.
Yeah.
And at one point, Joe Perry left the band. Actually saw Joe Perry as an opening act, Joe Perry Project, opening up for Rush on the Moving Pictures tour in Alpine Valley, Wisconsin.
Were you in college then?
Yeah, I was on summer break though. I was in college.
You did a lot in college.
I did a lot in college. Saw a lot of concerts. And they were all right. But, I think Joe was still, heroined or coked out, whatever. But eventually they kind of cleaned up and came back and they, did that album Pump or
Well, but they put that album out, Done with Mirrors. But that was actually my first Aerosmith album that I bought, and I actually liked it.
Dude, you missed the top 4, man.
I didn't know those songs then. I didn't know those songs. I was like 8 years old or something. But that album is actually not a bad album.
No, it's not.
Let the music do the talking.
Let the music do the talking. Let the music do the talking.
But I didn't know the history of Aerosmith at that time when that album came. I think I got it off one of those RCA or Columbia house things.
Compilation albums.
It was like one of those where you get 11 albums for a penny and you have to buy 7 more or whatever. Remember
we all
that?
did that.
Yeah. I never paid them back.
Columbia House. I'm not really a huge fan of the latter period of Aerosmith, but I do credit them with reinventing themselves and getting new songwriters in and becoming a massive band. Probably 10 years ago, a little over that, we were in California for Karen's dad's wedding, and we went to the Hollywood Bowl, and it was Cheap Trick and Aerosmith at the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
And Aerosmith, I've never seen them before that, but they killed, man. They were awesome. You got to give it to the guys. They were like in their 40s and 50s when they reinvented themselves.
Yeah.
And give it up for Aerosmith.
I narrowed it down to 5. I have a couple that are not on my list. One of them would be Heart, because they were big in the late 70s, and then they sort of dried up, and then in the late 80s, they sort of came back with their sort of pop rock stuff.
Yeah.
It was a little more commercialized or whatever.
Yeah. And you got to pick one, Troy.
I know.
What is
it? I'm just rolling off some stuff here. Another one would be not necessarily a band, but a person. Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl was in Nirvana. Kurt Cobain killed himself. What does he do? He's a drummer, and he came back with, and he's bigger than ever with the Foo Fighters. They're
totally reinvented himself.
Totally reinvented himself
as a front man, a guitar player.
I would call that a comeback.
Totally,
for sure. But my number 3 choice for comeback would be probably Alice in Chains.
Really?
Yeah. Lane Staley, I think the last album they put out was in '95, was their self-titled album. And I love Lane Staley. I love Alice in Chains. And then They got this new singer.
POD'd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got this new singer, William Duvall, I think is his name, and they put out an album in about 2009, which was a really good album. I was shocked. One thing about Alice in Chains is the harmonies.
Yeah.
You know, Jerry Cantrell he can write those
Great band.
Sabbathy
Yeah.
sort of riffs, you know, and weird chord changes and those harmonies are what makes Alice in Chains. And they came back with that album, and I think it was 2009, and it was a great album. And they've put out some other albums since that they're okay. They're not the best, but I mean you can't compete with Elaine Staley's vocals. And he was like, it was a monster when it came to those kind of vocals. Yeah.
Sadly missed.
Yeah. What's your number 2?
Well, I mean, if there was one album that you could really say they should have died, but they came back from the dead, was acdc Back in Black. I mean, again, I say this all the time, I was in college. I think I was a freshman. Couldn't say I was a massive acdc fan, but I definitely knew about them. And then, of course, Bon Scott kicked the bucket, you know, and drunk himself to death. But that album nothing was ever bigger as a comeback album.
She was a fast machine. She kept the motor clean. She was the best damn woman that I ever seen.
Brian Johnson totally rusted the vocals and took them to a new direction.
Yeah.
And there's not too many albums outside of Back in Black. And of course, they've been going on forever and ever. And they're still around, and everyone's kind of dropped off. But you still got Angus, and you still got Brian.
That's all you need.
Malcolm's dead, and drummer Phil Rudd's gone. But that was insurmountable as far as a total rebirth of a band. Literally like a year or two after Bon died.
Not even a year, I don't think. It was really quick.
Yeah, it was quick.
It was really quick. There's not a bad song on that album.
No.
I mean, it's really probably definitely the best AC/DC album ever. And
Yeah.
Back in Black, I just discovered this recently watching Rick Beato. The song Back in Black is one of the few songs that has over 1 billion listens on Spotify.
Rock songs.
Rock songs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Not Miley.
No. Maybe. I don't know. I can't
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no. I'm talking about the classic rock generation.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. Queen has 3 songs that has over 1 billion listens on Spotify.
It's amazing.
Yeah. My number 2 would be, and I'm surprised you didn't think of this, and I guess you would call it a comeback, would be Van Halen.
It's got what it takes. So tell me why can't this be love?
Totally.
When David Lee Roth left Van Halen at their pinnacle, at the top. I mean, they were the top of the world. 1984, it just came out.
Might as well jump. Might as well jump.
They were the rock band of the 80s.
You win.
And then I win. Should that be number 1? Should that be number 1?
Well, I mean, we met Sammy
Yeah.
when we were in California.
Yeah.
And I'm old school, original Van Halen.
Oh, yeah.
1978 when it turned my head around. And so I've always been a David Lee Roth devotee.
Yeah.
But I can't deny the where Van Halen went with Sammy.
Oh, yeah.
And with 5150. I mean, it became like they had probably more number 1 hits with Sammy than they did with Dave.
Yeah.
Although,
And they changed their sound quite a bit.
yeah.
You know, it was a different sound, but yeah, they were top of the world. at that time.
I'm not going to slam Sammy, but I'm a DLR guy.
I am too. I am too. I love David Lee Roth, man. He's the best with Van Halen for sure. And then he went on to do his whole little solo stuff and California Girls and all that stuff. And
but he had Steve Vai, he had Billy Sheehan. He had like the hottest band you could get.
Whoa! She's beautiful!
Our friend Brett Tuggle, who recently passed away, who had been playing with Lindsey Buckingham over the past 20 years, he was one of the keyboard players and songwriters on David Lee Roth's albums.
This must be just like living in paradise.
Brett Tuggle is the guy's name. He played keyboards in David Lee Roth's band and has song credit for some of the songs.
No kidding.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? What's your number one?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I'd have to say my number one is Fleetwood Mac.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies.
Talk about a blues band from the 60s that morphed into, different band when Bob Welch was with them and all that. And that wasn't my favorite period. When Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined, transformed the band. If you've never seen the movie Sound City, it's actually free on YouTube. You'll get the whole story, but Mick Fleetwood discovered Lindsey with that album, Buckingham Nicks, and then they joined the band, and they became the biggest band on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you think about that album, Fleetwood Mac, and then, Rumors and Tusk and all those. I mean, there was not a bigger band at that time, and they were awesome.
Hear you saying you would never break the chain.
Say what you want about Stevie Nicks. Driving Lindsey out of the band, of course she ended up getting Mike Campbell in the band, but that was, two of the biggest albums of the mid-'70s right there, late 70s.
I didn't even think of Fleetwood Mac, but
What do you got?
my number one is your number two, acdc. When Bon Scott died, from, I don't know, did he
Drank himself to
he
death.
drank himself to death? Didn't he like
He did a Bonham, basically, just too many shots of whatever it was.
didn't he suffocate himself by puking or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, John Bonham. He asphyxiated on
But can
his
you
own.
imagine? I mean, AC/DC at that time was, I was a kid, so I don't really remember, and I love those AC/DC songs now. I don't know how huge they were, how big they were, but to go from, okay, damn, we just lost our lead singer. What the hell do we do?
And they were still coming up.
They were still coming up, but can you imagine? You're like, damn, we were on our way up. And we just lost our singer. What the hell do we do? And you find Brian Johnson,
who's a guy out of England who was doing commercials.
And they record one of probably the best rock album of all time. And if you listen to the production, I think about that stuff because I try to play Back in Black on guitar every once in a while, and it's hard not to hit a wrong note or not hit a wrong, but make it sound so smooth. But they did it, man, and that whole album.
It was great production. It was just like I said, I think I was a freshman in college, and you couldn't walk on campus without hearing Back in Black. It was a life changer. You know, they always say that successful bands have to change with the times. A lot of them, like, look at U2 or look at, anyone like that. But if you want to pick a band that just like, this is our sound, we're going to stick with it, and that's what we're going to do.
We're going to do three chords and like a simple drum beat, and we're just going to rock it.
And, they are the contrarian opinion to that kind of growth.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below and let us know your top 3 comeback bands of all time. And make sure to like this video, and we will see you next time.
See ya.